contractors. Today I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to talk about getting paid. So how do you pay yourself? Do you pay yourself every week? Do you pay yourself right off the top? Do you pay yourself after you've paid your materials, your labor, subcontractors? Do you just take whatever's left over? It's just something for us to think about is how we get paid. As business owners, a lot of times we put a lot of hours into our work. We make sure other people get paid. But sometimes we don't follow through to make sure we're getting paid and we're getting paid the right way. A lot of people seem to think that, you've heard it, pay yourself first. Well, I kind of come from a different school of thought. I come from Romans 13:8, where you owe no man anything. And I think that if you're going to build your construction business, that you want to be honest and trustworthy in your business, and you want to have your business known for its integrity and how you do business. You want to be able to pay everyone that you owe, but you're not in business to give away free labor. You're in business to make money, so you also need to be paid. And we want you to be able to get paid and get paid the right way. One way that some of the contractors I've seen in the past do is they'll get a draw, maybe a progress draw, and it may be $5,000-$10,000, maybe more, but they get that draw and then they think that, okay, I can make it another couple of weeks. I've got my money and I can get my bills paid, and this will hold us over. And then they may not pay anybody out of that draw. They may think to wait till the end of the job and then at the last draw pay everybody. But that's just not a good way to do business. So there is a better way. There is the right way. So what we're going to look at is following the rule of splitting. Every single check that you get from a client, whether you're doing residential work or you're doing commercial work, whatever it is, whatever contracting that you're doing, every check that you get from your client must be split immediately. You need to look at the check and see it as this portion of the check goes to direct job cost, and this portion of the check goes to overhead. So that way, everybody gets paid. When we first started our little construction company decades ago, my husband and I, we didn't have anyone teaching us about overhead. All we knew was that, you bid the work for time, materials, labor, and you tried to pad it so that you could get a profit. That's how we did. It's kind of like gambling. We really were relying on getting the work done as fast as possible, because if it got done faster, that was less labor, more money. Less time, more money. And that was just the way that we did business for a long time. And it was just like gambling. You never really knew till the end of the job how you were going to make out. Were you really going to have a profit or not? So that's definitely not the way to do it. And we've learned a lot over the years, and I definitely want to show you how to do it the right way. We were young and dumb, as you might could say, but we did learn, And we were just trying to bid low, get work, stay busy, and hope that everything went well. And in the end, we have a nice little cushy amount to live off of until we got the next job and repeat the process. But that really didn't work for us, and it's not going to work for you if that's how you're doing it. It just doesn't work that way. So if I asked you, I get another question, if I asked you, well, how much do you get paid? How much are you paying yourself? Could you tell me exactly the amount that you get paid, whether if it's weekly, bi-weekly? Could you say exactly how much that is? Or would it be like our situation was decades ago? Well, it depends on how the job turns out. Well, to run a profitable contracting business, you have to stop paying yourself like a gambler. You have to start paying yourself like a business owner. The way to do that is to split the money. Again, kind of going back to that. You're going to split your money, but there's a little bit more to it. First of all, you've got to understand your role in your business. As a solo contractor, you wear two hats. You have two jobs. One is the trade that you're in. So if you're a painter or a plumber or electrician or a drywall finisher, whatever your trade is, that's the one hat that you wear. And the second hat that you wear is being the business owner. And that hat, it includes like paying your bills and paying for materials, making sure your taxes are paid, all of the bookkeeping, and that's all responsibilities of the owner. And so those are your two hats that you have to wear in your business. But here is the rule. This is the one rule that I want you to understand. When you wear the tradesman hat, whatever that trade is, when you wear that hat, your pay is a direct job cost. It costs the cost of your labor and your cost of your time goes straight to the job cost, okay? But when you wear the owner's hat, you can still bill that time, but you bill it as an overhead item. So you can't bill your salary for doing your bookkeeping or answering the phone for potential clients, or trying to get materials lists to the lumber supply. So when you're spending time doing those are the tasks an owner does, and you can't bill your hours for those tasks as a direct job cost. Okay, so let's say for instance, you can't bill your client for, say, that you send them an invoice for your 2 hours of estimating after you got home from work the other day. You can't use that as a direct job cost. Again, that's part of what the owner does to keep your business going. So that's an overhead expense. But now, how do you get paid for doing that? So if you're getting paid when you're on the job, you're actually working, you're doing the painting, you're doing the carpentry work, and you know those hours that you spend, 8-10 hours a day doing those things, and you know you're going to get paid for doing those. But then it's when you're not doing those and you're doing the other owner's hat, how do you know you're going to get paid for that? You are working still, and you still have to be paid. So how do you capture that money? You build it into your overhead. So here, let's go back again. The two hats that you're wearing. One is the tradesman hat. This is the actual labor. This is the billable hourly time on the job. And the second is the owner's hat. And this is the time that you spend estimating on the phone, running up and down the roads, looking at jobs. This is the time that the owner spends building into his business. They are two different roles, and you pay them in a different way. When you are working on the job site doing your trade, you charge the client an hourly labor rate. That is your direct job cost, not an overhead cost. If you work 8 hours, say you're hanging drywall, so you bill for 8 hours of labor. Well, instead, what you're thinking maybe, okay, well, what if I just paid myself a salary? I'm just going to pay myself one lump sum, and I'm not going to bill my time for the amount of labor that I put on in the job. And so why can't I just do that? Well, there's a reason, and it's vital for you to understand this and include your labor cost, your own labor cost. So let's imagine this. Let's say you were hanging drywall and you broke your leg. Now you've got to hire someone to come and finish that drywall that you couldn't finish because now you have a broken leg. So if it was going to take you 8 hours to finish the drywall, now you have to pay someone else to 8 hours of pay to finish the work. If you had put no money in your bid for you doing the hourly work, but only your salary and your overhead, then you've just lost a lot of money because you're having to pay the other guy to do the work. That money's coming out of your salary. But if you had put money in the job or in the bid for the 8 hours of finishing the drywall, then the other guy, we'll say Mike somebody is going to finish the drywall. The money is in there for him to finish the drywall and for you to still get your salary. So if you're only paying yourself one way, and we can flip that coin and look at it from the other direction too. If you're only paying yourself an hourly rate, but you're working on the job 8-10 hours a day, then you're getting in your truck, you're on the phone, you're looking at work, you're paying bills, are you getting paid for that? If you don't have your salary and your overhead, then all of that time that you spend chasing down more work, talking with other clients, meeting with your accountant, all that time you're just giving that away. You're working for nothing. You're not getting paid for it. So what we want to do is avoid only getting paid one way. If you're going to be on the job and you're going to put hours in to do your trade, well, then you need to bill for your labor straight to the job costs. But you also need to be paid as a business owner. So how do we do that? So as the owner, you don't bill by the hour. So you have to calculate your salary and overhead. Okay? So you're one person, you're doing two jobs, and you must be paid for both. And this is where a lot of contractors, they work for nothing because they're only paying themselves in one way. It's either as a salary or by the hour. But when you're doing two jobs and you have to be paid for both, you also do get paid differently. So let's say you spend 4 hours a day, that's 20 hours a week, running your business. You need to assign a dollar value to that. So if you're spending 20 hours a week, so let's say that's $600 a week. Okay, that $600 doesn't go into materials and labors on your estimate. Okay, it goes in your overhead along with your insurance, your phone bill, your truck payment, or just all of the list of things that you need to pay to stay in business. That's where your $600 a week for your 20 hours a week as a owner hat, that's where that money goes. Okay, it goes into your overhead. So if you don't pay yourself for the work you do when you wear the owner hat, you'll always be working for nothing. Okay, now how do we capture that $600 though? I mean, do you just say, okay, I'm adding $600 a week to already the draw that I'm supposed to be getting? Or how do we capture that $600? So what I have is a worksheet that is called, this is my one-page contractor overhead worksheet, and we're going to look at it. I use this to calculate all overhead expenses in a year. Once that is completely filled out and my salary is also included, I calculate the overhead percentage. For example, if you take your total overhead, that's your bills and your salary, like the $600 a week we were talking about above, let's say it totals up to be $30,000 a year. Well, you divide that by your total gross income. What is your annual income? So if you typically make $150,000 a year, then you would divide the $30,000 by the $150,000. So that would be $30,000 is your overhead expenses divided by the $150,000 annual income. And it comes to 0.20 or 20%. That is your magic number. That is your overhead percentage. Now you can know for sure what to put on your estimate. There's no more guessing. There's no more just doing what the other guy does. The other guy is saying, oh, I do 10%, or I do 20%, or maybe some guys even go 30% or 35%. So you just heard what other people are using for an overhead percentage, and you're just tacking that number on. Well, you need to know what your number is, not somebody else's. You need to know exactly how much it is costing you to stay in business, to maintain your business, and also to just grow your business. So this is a number that's very important to know, and it doesn't take long to do it. You can just sit down with the worksheet, and probably, if you've got all the information just right there at your fingertips, you should be able to do this within 30 minutes to an hour. And it's simple math. nothing hard, just adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying. Very simple math. Now, once you have that, then every bid, every estimate that you do, that's your overhead percentage that you add to your bid. And you know, you can do that confidently now. And anytime there's changes that like in your overhead expenses, so maybe you were not renting office space. Maybe you were using some room in your home for an office for a little while, but you felt like, hey, you know, this is growing out of my home. It's just taking up too much of the space in my home, so I need an office space. So you go out and you lease an office. Well, that's going to drastically change your overhead expenses and your overhead percentage. So you're going to have to go back and redo that. So anytime you have a big change or even small change, you always need to go back and recalculate just to make sure those numbers are staying up to date with what you are actually spending. And if you need to increase your salary, maybe you go from 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week. Okay, now what are we looking at? Now, you know, you don't want to just give away 10 hours. You don't want to work 10 hours for nothing. So you have to go back, change that number in the worksheet, and now you've got a new percentage. Now you've got your new number, and that's going to keep your business moving forward, not backward, because you're going to be making money and you're not going to be losing money. You're not going to be out there wearing yourself out and at the end of the week not having anything to show for it. If this video made sense to you, do me a favor and just hit that like button. It tells YouTube to show this video to other contractors who may also be struggling. As a business owner, you deserve to get paid for both hats that you wear, the tradesman and the owner. If you are serious about turning your trade into a business or growing your current small contracting business, then hit the subscribe button. We're building a community of contractors who know their worth. So I have a book that will be released this year, and if you would like updates on the book, and it will be on my website too, or through the email when you sign up, you'll get updates for my book.